All right. Okay. The okay. All right. Leopold Park. This is a area, possibly a suburb, that is due west of Pittsburgh and just a little bit north. And it's just like Pittsburgh. Lots of there's lots of sort of hilly kind of terrain. This is the Appalachian Mountains. When I think of the Appalachian Mountains, I didn't really think of Pittsburgh as being like really in it, but apparently it really is. And now that I think about it, Pittsburgh is in a really strange. Well, Pittsburgh is not in a strange place, but the area around Pittsburgh is kind of strange because it's a piece of the country or that people kind of think about or they know about, but they don't think about, which is this. When you think about Ohio, it's got that sort of shield shape, right? And then when you think about Pennsylvania, you're like, well, it's like a rectangle that has a part of it all the way to the east that's not surveyed. It's not a surveyed line. And then when you think of West Virginia, you think of the this kind of shape that's got like a part that goes up, a part that goes to the east, and then like a larger kind of part. So Pittsburgh is right there by that part that goes north. That you kind of are like, you know that it's there because you know the shape of West Virginia, sort of. So, but you're like, well, you don't really think about, well, what's there? Anyway, Pittsburgh is kind of right there on the Pennsylvania side of that. And so in order to get to Pennsylvania, coming from the west of Pennsylvania, which would be, you have to go through, you're coming from Ohio going west, then you go through that area, that northern part, that northern like pinnacle. I don't know if it's the panhandle, what they're calling it. This is looks like a field hockey court at this park here. So you got to go through that. So you're going east through Ohio, east through the northern panhandle of West Virginia, and then you're getting into western Pennsylvania, and that's the Pittsburgh area, and it is hilly, like mountainous around here. There's a street called Canton Avenue, which is one of the steepest streets in the world. There's a few others, of course, vying for a similar designation as per Guinness Book of World Records, etc. They also have a bicycle race that includes 13 of the steepest hills, mountains, streets in Pittsburgh. It's called the Dirty Dozen, I think, because it's like a baker's dozen, one more, 13 dirty dozen. They've been doing it for like 40 years or something, and but you just go up every one, because when I heard about it, I was like, you're going down those hills, oh my gosh. No, they're just going up. Craziness. So it really is like steep country around here, and that's going to play into like we haven't been, a lot of the videos we've done so far, it's just sort of taken for granted that we have like level ground, and it just like, this is an area which like much of the terrain around the earth, there are places that do not have tons of level ground. So this is just like one of those places. I'm sure there's places that, I mean, Nepal comes to mind as being like extremely, hard to find level ground. Near the near Mount Everest and stuff. So this is just like one example of that. There's going to be others. Of course, there's going to be parks and places where you could find level ground, and of course, you could do skill on non-level ground, on unlevel ground. It just makes it, I would say, it's more difficult. But I talked to some of the local people, and they don't think about it. They're just used to it. They know exactly what they're dealing with. It also seems like they don't if they're in a certain area, they are not necessarily familiar with like other areas, like other parts of the city. So if they're in one part of the city, they don't necessarily go to Canton Avenue just because it's the most steepest street, in the world or something. So, and that's also true for like a lot of places that, a lot of times people kind of like stay like in their, like where their own kind of like area, which we're kind of addressing in a way with skill spaces, because it gives like everyone a little bit more space, because it's like now you can go do some skill in a park or an area that previously you may have just you never considered even like looking at or even going to. So I mean, and I'm what I'm looking at right now here is, I mean, it's going to be tough. Do you want to go and like set up to skill on like this kind of like this pretty? It's a hill. It's a good hill. Maybe over there is maybe a spot. I'd have to like. Sometimes you just have to like stand on something to feel if it's gonna be a spot. It's one thing if you're gonna do some like 3 club in a spot for like a few minutes. Like that's not so bad. You can kind of do that. If you like, just stand somewhere in a spot, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do it for a few minutes. Like that's, or even for a minute, for 30 seconds. Like that's one thing, But like, and now that I'm here, it feels okay. You do have like this netting, so you're probably not gonna get your equipment. So this might be an option actually for us. I would call this like small space. You could maybe do some club passing out here. Certainly Kendama. Now that I look at it, this area right by this light pole might be a possibility, although you don't want to like be dealing with like the entrances, the egress. You don't want to get in the way of anyone. And this is also, I can tell that this is a little bit more damp, and now that I'm here, I can see that this has a little grate, a little drainage over here. So this is actually a depression area that is sort of intentionally put here, and I could actually feel the dew, the morning dew is pretty prevalent in this area. So depending on the conditions, this may be something, but it may also prove to not be feasible. This sort of concrete block here, I don't know. It could be something. I mean, these are the kind of things where on the local level you just kind of got to figure out. I also don't know how. You don't really want to set up next to the war memorial either. So, they've got the netting and the fence on the field hockey, so it's like a designated play area, as opposed to this block, which is kind of undefined and in some ways an outlier. I'm not sure. Maybe that's where a concession is supposed to set up, like where you can buy some snacks. I found Pittsburgh to be like a really it's a very like muscular city. It's kind of like in some ways it's similar to like Chicago in that regard. I'd almost like, now that I'm here, people talk like what's Midwestern. Like I feel like Pittsburgh's like got a real Midwestern mentality. Probably, I don't know how that would go over too well. But it does kind of feel like it. Basketball court, you got your vending machine, and the drinking fountains and the restrooms and stuff. So they got some nice conveniences here, amenities. This is not working at this time. The drinking fountain. All right, skill space. Yeah, I think I'm gonna just gotta, these are those kind of things where it's like there's more spaces in the world, so probably don't set up next to the war memorial, right? Come on, guys. I mean, and so here's the kind of thing where it's like, even though this is like sort of a nice spot, it seems relatively level and no grates that I can see for water collection. Maybe that's why you've got to get on the ground and see this actually looks a little bit, it's definitely like here you go, here's the grate we're probably going to expect, and back here is kind of hilly, not exactly, plus you're a little bit off to the side. I don't know, this area is a maybe kind of thing. I actually kind of like this spot, and what I was just going to point out is, like, from a logistics point of view, it's like, you don't want to like set up, well, here we go with the grates. You just want to stay away from the grate stuff, because that means that's where water's supposed to flow, and where there's water, there's mud, and you're not going to want to get your equipment, your juggling stuff, your kendamas, muddy and everything. So that's the concern there. But other than that, like this spot right here, I was going to point out is that, like, you got this spot, so it's like don't set up by the war memorial, but then you got this spot, and the problem here is that you got people going to you don't really want to be near the restroom either. You got people potentially going for the drinking fountain, and then you got people who might be getting a drink. So being right here is not like great, but the cool thing is that you're visible, you're near the skate park, so we're always like looking. So it's like, moving on, how about this spot here? All right, now this seems to be better because you're kind of off to the side. You got this relatively small little place. You could probably have 2 or 3 people, although now you're near a garbage can, and you're kind of, so I would call this like small space, because you could do kendama, juggling, maybe some poi, although by the time you're doing poi, you got things spinning around. You don't want to be near anyone who's having a lunch or enjoying the shelter area over here. This area has a depression, so you don't really want to be in there with the grate there. I'm guessing that's a similar situation over here. Yep. So you kind of got these little kind of spots like carving out that are possibilities, but no like expansive place yet. Everything we've seen here is kind of like small scale. Here's the pickleball courts. You got your basketball, pickleball, which is the craze sweeping the nation. Now here's like an unexpected, like out of alleyway. Not exactly sure the reason. It looks like with these lines, maybe there might have been something here that was